Hi everyone, I am here today with a video on how my husband and I check in with each other regularly on our relationship. We call this family couch time, but you can call it a relationship check-in. Basically a date that my husband and I have with each other once a month to talk about our relationship. And when I say date, it's very casual. We basically just sit on the couch and we chat for around 20 minutes to half an hour or so. It's very easy to schedule. It's very easy to make time for, in the sense that it doesn't take a whole lot of time. Where it becomes more difficult is the natural resistance that people feel towards communicating in a way that's vulnerable and open. And that sounds really strange, I know, but from experience, I have had a lot of trouble with this. Hubby and I got into very kind of like unhealthy communication patterns. We were very defensive with each other. We would be very reactive to one another. We would misunderstand each other a lot because we didn't really have time set aside to communicate. Of course, we talked every day. We live with each other. We have meals together. We're in the same room a lot of the time because we live in a very tiny condo. But we didn't really have time set aside for open, like very connected and vulnerable, authentic communication. I was very kind of like worried about our relationship at one point because I could see this distance between us growing just in misunderstandings, miscommunications, just very, very sensitive and reactive to what the other person would say. And this happened on both sides, both his side and my side. So in the summer of 2020, when we were deep into the pandemic and I was listening to a lot of podcasts and going out for a lot of solo walks, I came across a lot of podcasts that talked about relationship check-ins and how to structure them. Ultimately, I didn't really follow any template. I came up with something that would work better for us. This video is all about what my husband and I do. This may not be right for your particular relationship, but I hope you can get some ideas or some inspiration from this video to start broaching this topic with your significant other or anyone else in your life that you feel may benefit from a regular relationship check-in. So here is what hubby and I do, and I did propose this to him in the summer of 2020. I kind of gradually brought this up a few times before we actually implemented it. And because we weren't listening very well to each other and we weren't like taking each other that seriously, we weren't communicating well at all, it did take like a little bit of, hey, I think we should do this. I listened to this podcast and it's supposed to be really good and we can make it fun. I think probably I told him about it maybe a month or two before we actually sat down and did our very first relationship check-in in August of 2020. So this is the format that I came up with. I think it's a lot of fun, but again, this isn't going to work for every relationship, and do feel free to tweak all of these particulars and parameters to something that might suit your relationship better. So I came up with a format that we would each take turns to talk, and I'll get into what we talk about a little bit later, but it's 5 minutes each. We each time ourselves, and this was really, really important to me because my husband and I have very different ways of communication. We are having a conversation that borders on uncomfortable, or maybe it's an argument. He is much more likely to clam up and not say anything. So I didn't want the relationship check-in to just be me talking. I wanted to hear from him, and I wanted him to have an equal amount of time to express himself. So this time of like 5 minutes each was super important to me, and I think it worked out really well. This might seem very short for some people, 5 minutes, but for hubby it feels like an eternity. For me it feels like, well, it depends. Some days I have more to say and it feels really, really short, but some days I don't really have a lot to say, and 5 minutes does seem like a good amount of time. So you can adjust the number of minutes. It's an equal amount of time that I feel is important here. So hubby and I have 2 rounds of sharing. When we first started the relationship check-in or family couch time, The first round would be looking back at the previous month, because we do this every month. We would look back and we would say, you know, what did we really like that happened in the month? It could be like something we did together, or maybe hubby said something that made me feel really happy and warm and supported, or perhaps hubby helped me with something that I really appreciated. So that is my opportunity to kind of look back on the previous month and let hubby know what I enjoyed and also what didn't feel as good. So maybe hubby snapped at me one day, or maybe he said something that was kind of hurtful. We might have addressed all these things already, but sometimes I say them again just when we're like very open and in tune with each other. We're like actively listening to each other, and I just say it again. And hubby's really good at taking in that feedback during the relationship check-in. So I'll have 5 minutes to reflect on the previous month, and hubby will have 5 minutes to reflect on the previous month. We kind of decide on the order in the moment. We try to alternate, but sometimes it's hard to remember who went first the previous month. I'll generally defer to hubby to go first, but sometimes he doesn't want to, so sometimes I'll go first. And the second round would be looking ahead for the month. What we want more of, what we're excited about, what we might want less of, or maybe something hubby or I could work on that would make our relationship a little bit more smooth sailing. During the pandemic, because I work from home, I am pretty much home all the time, and hubby does go out to work, but his schedule has become very irregular. So sometimes he's home during the day when I have to do some work. Maybe I have a meeting or a deadline coming up and I need to focus. Hubby in the past has been very not purposely disruptive, but because I'm in the same room, he feels like when he wants to say something, he can just say it to me, not realizing that I'm trying to focus and concentrate. And we do have a very small condo, so if he's sitting on the couch here, I'm just working like right behind the couch. When I'm trying to focus, that is not something that puts me in a very good mood. And I do like when hubby communicates and tells me things and shares things, but it's just not the right moment. Our relationship check-in has been really good for that. Just a reminder, I'm gonna be really busy the next week. If you see me on the computer, I'm probably working, so maybe wait until afterwards to say something to me. That structure worked really well for the first little while, but as we continued with the relationship check-ins and as we got more and more comfortable with like talking to each other, I know it sounds strange because we've been married for so long, but this is a very different format, very different from what we're used to. It's almost like therapy, but it's just the two of us in the room together. As we got more comfortable with this, as we got more open with each other, and we would bring up more topics that were uncomfortable or things that we would hesitate to bring up in the past. As we got more comfortable with these sorts of things, we started wanting, I think, naturally to interact more. So rather than doing 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, where the other person is just silent and taking it all in and not really responding, now we have 5 minutes in the first round each of both reflecting and looking ahead. So we just say what we liked, what we want more of, what we didn't like, and what we want less of. And then the second round is our opportunity to ask each other questions. It's a conversation based on questions that I have in my own mind. And then when it's his turn, he has 5 minutes to ask me questions and direct the conversation in a way that suits him. So I want to be very clear. Hubby and I communicate every day. It's just these family couch times or relationship check-ins are when we set aside time to do like a more heart-to-heart connected conversation with each other. So this is something that I have found has helped our communication. So now I don't have to reserve my questions to ask him at family couch time, although the ones that I want his undivided attention and the ones that I feel are a little more sensitive, I will bring up during our family couch time. Other topics though, lighter topics like cooking, vacation, that sort of thing, we can talk about pretty much at any time, and we're a lot better at not like misunderstanding each other or putting assumptions on one another or expectations. we're much more open, and we're also less defensive. It's actually really, really nice, because before, a little misunderstanding, we might be angry with each other or just like not want to talk to each other for hours at a time. And now we make up a lot faster. Now we have a little bit more perspective because we understand each other better, and we know we can talk about things without blowing them out of proportion. It's just awesome. So I highly recommend having a relationship check-in, whether it be with your significant other, a family member, a close friend, anyone who you want to have a little bit of a deeper connection with. And maybe your relationship is starting to go down a path where you're drifting apart, or you're having lots of misunderstandings. The relationship check-in definitely helps. You do, of course, need to have someone on the other side who is willing to participate. So even though hubby was very, very reluctant to participate, he did not want to do this at the beginning. He still doesn't really want to do this now, but I think he does see the benefits, and he sees how much our relationship has improved. So he still puts in the effort, even though he feels a lot of resistance towards it. So the people in your life that you propose this to, they can feel resistant, but deep down, they need to want to work on the relationship with you. So that is a caveat. Of course, you can't force a relationship check-in on someone. It needs to be a willing participant, no matter how reluctant or resistant they feel. The other thing hubby and I do, which really helps, is we buy treats. So we always have a treat on relationship check-in day. It's always a food treat, and it's a little bit of a silly thing, but it's become part of our routine, and I actually really look forward to that part, irrespective of whether or not I'm looking forward to checking in with hubby. Because if I'm being perfectly honest, sometimes I don't want to do it either. It is like a vulnerable time. We have had tears. We've talked about very uncomfortable and painful topics. So yeah, sometimes I don't want to do that either, but overall I see how much it benefits our relationship, and so we will continue with these monthly relationship check-ins. We set aside the last Saturday of each month to do this, and sometimes we do have to shift that depending on hubby's work schedule, but typically we try to keep the last Saturday of the month, and it is like a firm hold on my calendar. It's not something I move around unless I have to. So that is basically it for this video. I will leave a blog post down below all about our family couch time. This was before we changed up the rounds to the second round being kind of like a question and answer type format. So you'll see the old format in the blog post, but in the blog post I also talk about kind of like the key success factors of having such a check-in. Basically, it is deep listening and being vulnerable, but also being compassionate to one another. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have a regular relationship check-in with anyone in your life, I would love to hear about it. Thank you again for watching this video. I will see you all in the next one. Until then, please take care, and bye for now.